Welcome to the Caerusnet Podcast. I've got with me today a good friend in business, somebody that I've done collabs with for the last 5 years. That's Jason Tracey with Roar Consulting. He's the leader of the Difference Makers in Livingston County through his Difference Maker Boot Camp. He basically helps businesses find their voice, feel more powerful about what they're doing, more empowered, strategizing how to get more sales, and that's what really so many businesses need. They just can't get out of their own way to successfully share their story. So, Jason, thanks for being on the podcast. I'm not sure if this is like the second one or third one that you've been on with me here. I've been on yours a few times now, so I'm excited about
Yep.
today because we
Yep.
could focus on you because your podcast, you're laser focused on everybody else. So this is about Jason Tracey today.
Let's go, man. I really appreciate that because it's so true, and I love it. I love putting other people on a platform. It's one of my favorite things when they come in the studio and they're so nervous and they don't necessarily see their stories and their value. And then I unlock it and we put it out there and it hits like 3,000 views and they're getting attention on it and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it's the internal marketing it's I would say it's more important than the external marketing. And that's a lot of what I'm doing through even this content and that I realized over time was it isn't just attracting clients, but man, been so many people that have come to me and been like, I feel so much more confident because I was doing this stuff. A little bit of a tangent. I just started this thing. I started a podcast with my one of my high school best friends because I'm like I've always for my whole life I wanted to do sports journalism. I've wanted to do a sports pod. I didn't know what a podcast was back in the day. That didn't exist, but I've always wanted to do the sports content. And so one day I'm like, I own a podcast studio. Why am I not doing this? Why am I not fulfilling this? And it's like, I don't want to just get here and do it myself and just rant and, have my show. Who do I want? I thought of my high school best friend who happens to live in Howell, and we started this thing, and it's been really cool. I texted him yesterday. I'm like, our clips from our content has gotten 20,000 views on just YouTube. But the last session we recorded, he's like, I gotta tell you, man, this has helped my confidence so much. He's like, it's so staggering. He was like, you wouldn't think it'd make that big of a deal, but he's like, I see it in all facets of my life. And he was like, and people are coming up to me with stuff. So it's really cool what that content can do internally. And that's the most important part.
Yeah, so you're really helping people with a part of their business I think that most people overlook or don't know how to strategize. So, with that being said, for those of you that haven't met Jason yet, his business is Roar Consulting. This is his logo. We'll be sure it's in the drop down. And
Yeah, I've always got my logo on somewhere, like
Superman, right? It's always there.
I've got the mild-mannered Clark Kent thing going on right now, but then I unzip it.
Yeah, so, I think that a couple things that we wanted to talk about today that I think our CirrusNet audience and our general listening audience is going to really benefit from, is this idea that, what does it look like when you make it in business, right? What does it look like when you make it? Or is it a series of continually adjusting, continually eating faces? Eating faces is a term that Jason came up with. And I know it's an interesting visual, right? We don't actually eat people's faces, but what we're doing really is, kind of just, swallowing the insignificant, which is just these little emotions and little fear that keeps us from being ourselves and keeps us from going forward. There's many excuses we can make in life that are going to derail us from our mission and keep us from reaching our potential. So, Jason, I want to ask you because, we're more than just people on a business group together. We're friends. And we've had open conversations with each other when business has been great and things are moving well as when we're getting kicked in the stomach a little bit
Yeah.
and trying to have that resilience. So for yourself, how is it that you keep yourself moving forward in the face of resistance, in the face of change, in the face of disappointment? Because, if I were to tune into your podcast, you're always that same focused, happy, positive, and encouraging guy. And I know that for me, people see me that way too, and that's a role I'm great at playing. But underneath that, there's a lot of shit going on too. So
Yeah.
let's talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool that you asked this question because I was putting together my member minute today, and I was thinking about how many times I've had conversations with you specifically, and I've been like, "Man, I'm finally figuring it out. I'm finally putting the pieces together. I'm finally getting clarity." And I shared with you, it's been 8 years in business, or it was 8 years in January that I went out and I started my business, started Ruhr Consulting, and through this, the biggest thing I've learned is that you learn through the action, right? And so going and taking the action and doing the things and falling on my face and figuring it out, and even through the worst times, like I'm learning and I'm growing from that. And it's been so cool. Every time I think I got it, like there's another jump and another curve. Now, making those jumps, there's a valley of despair you got to go through sometimes. And as you know, I've been in that valley, where it's like I'm not doing exactly what I want to do. I want to go over here. And like to get over here, there's a mindset that I've got to go through. There's limiting beliefs inside my head because that's the thing that's stopping all of us, right? Is like our own experiences, our own fear, our own, we're stop preventing ourselves from like from that little bit of pain. And so how I anchor that down and how I show up, and even through my worst times, I'm still the same guy. I'm this is not fake. Generally find the ways to that all the little things that I enjoy in life, and I collect those things like gratitude. I'm so grateful for the things that I get to do, even through the biggest struggles. I get to walk in my beautiful downtown of Brighton. I get to like enjoy all that. I get to enjoy my community. I get to surround myself around amazing people. My favorite thing through this 8 years of business has been the people that have come into my life, the yous, I mean, I could sit and list them on and on and on, and I'd slight so many people. Like we could sit for the next however long this conversation goes, and I could list the people that have come into my life. But man, to sit and have gratitude for that and to be grateful for that, like I've built a life that even through some of the biggest struggles and the biggest kicks in the gut, that I wouldn't trade for the world. And so I've on my podcast lit the fire so many times. Nobody ever wants to hire me. Nobody ever wants to bring me on to be part of their company because what I'm doing I love so much that it's worth going through those hard times. And so what I would say to other people is find the things you love in life. And it doesn't have to be the next big grand thing. It's just maybe putting a smile on somebody's face today. What are you doing? And everybody's doing something like that is fulfilling them. Do more of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, do you mind, do you have, what I want to do is just kind of bring kind of concrete examples. So give me like an example, or the listening audience here, an example of one of those challenges, raw and honest. What's something in the last 5 years that you had to deal with and continue to grow your business where, people around you might not even have recognized that was going on, if you're okay with sharing that.
Yeah, let's get vulnerable. So like I had one of my best years ever. I was doing fractional sales consulting. I was working with a lot of companies on EOS, and I had a lot of success doing that. I had 4 clients at one time that are all paying good money, and then I transitioned one client that like awesome. They went on and like they're doing great things. It was the natural progression that it was only a year we ended. That was great. It was expected. But around that same time, I had a client that decided to sell that came out of the blue, and all of a sudden, like so beginning right out of Christmas, it was literally the week after Christmas. I get this message that, hey, we're gonna go a different direction. I'm gonna prepare the company to sell. I've got to cut some overhead, and so the work we're doing with you doesn't make any sense, and so we're cutting that. I had another client that just stopped paying me because yeah, it was lots of stuff, but just stopped paying me, and so all of a sudden, my whole entire business was at a halt, and the work that I was doing in this consulting kept me so busy that I wasn't doing the things, getting out and doing the networking. I wasn't doing the speaking. I wasn't doing the trust builders. I wasn't doing the things that kept my business going and kept my business afloat. And so all of a sudden now I'm scrambling. And then on top of it, you look at limiting beliefs. And this is something that like I know people will look at me and like my energy and attitude, and I'm the face eater and like, all those things. But however, when you're that guy, when you're the face eater, when you're the business coach, when you're telling everybody you can make it through anything, when you're struggling, there's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of like trying to get over that hump of like everybody expects me to be the positive guy. Everybody like I'm not gonna be the business coach that's gonna dump all the things like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm gonna eat this month. Like, like because now there's blood in the water and the sharks are surrounding me, like now, like so to be vulnerable, to like really open up like that is really, really tough. It's tougher than I think than even most businesses. And maybe that's just the mindset I had, but like it's really, really tough to go through that experience. Um,
Let me ask, just interrupt you really quickly, if you don't mind. So when you're going through stuff like this, some people don't necessarily have the right people to share that kind of thing with. Sometimes we white knuckle our experiences and just go through it ourselves. Other times we have other people in business that will lend us their ear and confidence that we respect and appreciate, that can kind of help us through. So I think, were you able to leverage your network, leverage your contacts when you were kind of going through some of this stuff, just to talk things over with different people and get some support and help?
Yeah, and one, a huge thing, just coming out of Caerusnet, meeting Kevin Sabowski in our group, we had aligned and connected through the group and trust builders and talking and realized that we had a lot of synergy. However, Kevin approached me right in the midst of just my biggest struggles and was like, "Hey, would you want to be L10 partners? Would you want to meet every week and have a meeting and like really kind of like help each other and get deep and go vulnerable?" And so I had that space with Kevin where we were both very vulnerable and very open, and that was really a saving grace, and that was the igniter for me. And that's what I'm so glad you brought that up because it comes back to getting out of your own head. You can't do it by yourself. It takes other people,
And people, and people,
and
and people
seeking that
want,
help.
yeah, and people want to help too. So you're also giving somebody an opportunity to be helpful while you're
Yeah,
struggling. Imagine
exactly.
that.
And what a cool trade-off because I felt like we were really helping each other and pushing each other through that process. And we did that. We met up in that group for a year, and then I ended up taking I got from the Livingston Business Hub from the Howell Chamber, and I took his GBB program, Growing a Brilliant Business, and it was once a month, 3 hours 3 hours on a Zoom call that I'm like, oh my God, that's painful for someone that's like got to be moving all the time. But I'm like, if I'm going to go through this program and I already know the power of working with Kevin just from that one-on-one basis, if I'm going to take this program, I'm going to put my time into it. I'm going to actually work the program. And so that's another thing I would say to people because there's so many people that I've worked with, there's so many people that I've seen work with other coaches or reach out for help. You've got to actually then put in the work. You've got to
Yep.
then actually take the action. I love sessions where people it seems like they get the light bulb, but then you got to actually then go and do it. And that's what Difference Maker Boot Camp is about. It's not just about me talking and entertaining and getting a lot of energy in the morning or in the afternoon and ending your day. But now let's go put it in real world action. What is your commitment? What is that thing that you're going to tackle? What are those three things that you're going to tackle from now until next week when you come back here and report?
Yeah.
Because
So,
you've got to take that action. And that's where you learn the most.
and I think that's one of the biggest struggles a lot of folks have is that they go, "Oh yeah, that's sounds like exactly what I should be doing. I can see myself doing that. This is great. I'm really excited." And then they go through the rest of their day the same way they did before, wake up the next morning, and then that day is the same day that they were doing before, unless they've got accountability. And I think that what you just talked about was the accountability part of your boot camp. So let's before we jump into boot camp, I also wanted to mention, Caerusnet is really big in Livingston County. We're big in the other counties that we're into, but in Livingston County, there are more CirrusNet members than anything. So it's really cool to see people using the same language, philosophy, and vision that when you meet somebody from another CirrusNet team, it's almost kind of like a little bit of an instant bond there. And for the first, 15, 16 years of me doing CirrusNet, it seemed like the Brighton chamber was where all the action was at. Like it's where all the things were happening. And then something happened. I think it might be the leadership changes or other things, just, things change. But the Howell Chamber really seems to really just gone way out there to really try to empower the local entrepreneurs, local business people, support them with the business hub, with you and with Kevin and other folks that might be a part of it. So I just wanted to give kudos to the Howell Chamber for really just kind of retooling and having a new vision and bringing in some amazing people to be helping. And it's great that you've got that collaboration there as well too. Any comments regarding, any of that stuff with the Brighton Chamber, Howell Chamber?
Well, the Howell Chamber's been a huge part of my business because they have the hub program and they have such a vision for helping the businesses in Livingston County. And so they part of Janelle, who is the president of the organization, part of her vision was to go out and get support for those startup small businesses or those small businesses that they're scaling and they're growing, but they don't necessarily have the funds to just stop and invest in themselves. And so for me, a lot of my clients are those startup companies or are those companies that like they're literally stuck in their revenue growth. That's why they're bringing me on. And so their biggest gap, a deficit to bring me on and get the help they need is actually being able to pay for it. And so to be able to for the Howell Chamber to come to my Difference Maker boot camp and say this is something that we need to get in front of all the entrepreneurs, and then bring that program in and make it eligible for the grants. It's changed my business because it's getting me in front of more people. So I can't say enough. Outside of that, outside of CirrusNet, those the Howell Chamber events are the events that are similar to me, like CirrusNet. It's a different,
Yeah,
it's a mindset. I meet some really great people every time I go to a happy hour. I meet somebody new. I meet a new relationship. I meet a new opportunity. And so, for me, the two things that I invest the most time into, as far as building relationships, is CirrusNet and the Howell Chamber.
that's awesome. Okay, love to hear that. And I'm glad that they saw the value that you bring, to the community. So what the heck is boot camp? There's gonna be quite a variety of people watching this. And I will just want to, before you even answer that, I just wanted to add something. When I'm being referred to people, when my CirrusNet members are bringing somebody new to me and they're going, "Hey, Steve, I'd like you to meet so and so." And they're interested in learning more about CirrusNet. Uh, for me, when I tell these people, I've been doing this for 18 years now. So fortunately, God's blessed me with, at least being in the position where I'm no longer worried if I'm going to have another client. When's the next client going to get here? Is there a 6 month pause between now and my next client? I don't feel that pressure of having to buckle a little bit and tell a person who might not necessarily be the right fit for CirrusNet that they're the right fit for it to just bring revenue into
Yep.
my company. It's because that's one of the
Yeah.
worst things I can do, because if I bring the wrong person in, and I'm not saying,
Yeah.
wrong person like, oh, they look funny or something like that. What I'm talking about
It's not a
is,
good fit.
yeah, good fit, but good fit in terms of where they're at in their business cycle. How, you know, what do they have capacity wise to be on a team and be somebody that can make a difference? And, we had a gentleman that visited a few weeks ago, one of my CirrusNet teams, and he used to work for an IT company, doing IT for that company. And he went out to start his own. So he just launched this business, and we were talking about, he's really hoping and crossing his fingers to close his first client, which was going to be an appointment the day after mine. And of course, I wished him luck, but I could feel kind of the anxiety
Yeah.
emanating from him. Not that he was not fun to talk to or nice to talk to. I could talk to him. He's a great guy, but I also know what goes on under the skin. And when somebody is like, okay, I need to find a client, how am I going to pay my bills? I just left the company. is that a person that's going to really be able to concentrate and dive into something when they're kind of in self-defense mode? So what I like to do with a lot of folks like that is, get them in front of you, because you're somebody that's going to help them become a better storyteller. You're going to be somebody that's going to help give them some confidence and maybe turn away some of that anxiety. So, let's talk about the boot camp and who are the ideal people for you and what is this boot camp?
That's a great description for people that could really use because we just went over this lesson yesterday with session 4 in it's outward mindset versus inward mindset. And 99% of sales and business and networking is done in an inward mindset. And what inward is all of that stuff. Am I going to make that sale? Am I going to eat? Am I going to pay my bills? Is my boss going to write me up and put me on a performance plan? Like all those things. Is my wife wants to go on vacation at the end of the month? Am I going to have enough money to make that happen? And if I'm going out and I'm having a conversation with you and all of those things are going on internally, it doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a person. However, if all those things are going on internally, I'm missing all the stuff. I'm missing all the magic. I'm missing the actual building the relationship. I'm missing opportunities to actually listen and understand if I can actually solve your problem, right? If I'm actually a good fit to help you, or if I know somebody that is, and now I can serve you in a different way. And so a majority, what boot camp is they say the Navy SEALs say in times of chaos, you don't rise to the occasion, but you fall back to your level of training. The majority of people that I work with, and this is most people, they've been through these experiences, they've had these stories and these things that have happened to them that have shaped who they are and make them a difference maker. No matter what product or service it is that they're selling, they're purpose-driven entrepreneurs that have never learned how to connect their stories and their experiences in a marketing way to pull in their ideal client. And on top of that, they had the imposter syndrome that I was talking about, I was going through, and I've been through that in my life. I understand it from a sales perspective, being young and then going through my business and struggling. I understand what stops people from really pursuing. And so it is a process of really helping people find with their voice, their story, and then how to position and tell that in a compelling way that pulls people in, whether they're at a networking event and they have to do a member minute, or somebody asks them what they do. Because I know, even for me, when I started, it would be like a kick in the stomach of like, not in my stomach, don't, like I've got to go up next and I don't know what I'm going to say and I'm going to ramble on, and we've all had those experiences where somebody's just going on and on and on. It's not because they want to keep talking, you know. If they could say this in a confident way where people will continue to ask them questions, oh my God, how much better would that be? And so that boot camp, that's what that is that it's really a way to dominate your industry, dominate your space through those little differences. It's through mindset, it's through your communication and understanding who your people are, and understanding that while you're after that, you got to get out of your way and start taking care of your people, start serving people.
And so when you talk about like a difference maker boot camp, and it's talking about, weaving your story together in a way that builds your authenticity, it makes people feel really like almost like they're working with family, that they've had a connection with the person that's pitching them, or out there as a potential prospect. But this isn't just for, I guess I want to say this, when you're a small business and you're that small business entrepreneur, you are wearing all hats for your business. Most people do not start out with a sales department, a marketing department, an operations department. They don't have separate departments of people manning it. They are those departments. They wear all
Yeah.
those hats and they're turning those hats 360 all day long to the point where it can feel a little dizzying. Now, with that being said, I think that the biggest challenge that most small businesses have is this idea of thinking, I'm going to open a business. I'm going to go start a business. I'm going to put my lemonade stand out there, to put my stake in the ground, and I'm going to have people lined up right around the corner for my lemonade stand. And then, they left their company, they get their business card, they build a pamphlet-y website, they open their lemonade stand, and cars are just driving by. Nobody's
Yeah.
buying any lemonade. So there's the bursting of this preconceived notion, the excitement, the honeymoon mental phase of starting a business ends very quickly for most people. So you've got a variety of different business types that are doing this. It's not that it just has to be a business that's selling to business. You could be people that are selling directly to individuals. But give me just like a little example, maybe of like four or five different types of businesses that might be in boot camp that have no relationship to each other, but all are doing this because they got to get good at this part of it, which is that sales marketing side.
It's so cool because there's like people all over the board. I've got an artist, I've got a real estate agent in home care, we got space organization, we got junk removal, we got a couple junk removal people, which is crazy. A couple space organizers, home organizers like Genling. We got financial planners. Man, trying to think. It's all over the board. Some people in like MLM, network marketing, which my God, those people need so much help because, it's again, it's all about building the relationship. And so many people have taught MLM people to go out and sell, and like everybody wants this opportunity. And so now you're a problem in search for, or you're a solution in search for a problem. And,
Yeah.
and you don't even care if people have the problem or not. You know they want it. It's a good opportunity, right? And so you're just talking at people. And so taking it down. Here's a really good example, though, and this is an artist that is in our group that he really had a doubt in social media and telling his story and how that it could actually work. He's been using social media for a while, and he was very cynical, to say the least. And I taught him a framework, and not only just a framework, but we discovered in that session, in the session last week, what his actual difference is, like what he does that makes the art buying process different. And so everybody in the group gave him this phenomenal perspective in a post in order to put out there and how he helps people buy art that's more meaningful than live, laugh, love and home goods art. And so he makes this video. And this is what I'm talking about, the difference between inward and outward. Outward to me, outward mindset is what's going on with that person. I'm serving them. I'm here to help them. Like telling a story that compels people to reach out to you because you're the solution to or you're the answer to their solution or with their problem, right? He gets on and heard everything that we said and made this video that is probably, if you read the script, is word for word, probably what somebody told him. But he said it with an anger and a voice, and he said it based off of you should buy local art. You should support local artists. He put himself first through this whole entire message. A couple of days, no responses, no watching. If anybody I hope nobody watched it because nobody would hire him to come in their house with the way that he spoke in this video, right? And I use him as the example. He's great with it, right? So he puts another post out a couple days later, and the post is this beautiful. He painted this mural at this bike shop, and it's a phenomenal mural. But he didn't talk about this mural's great for me. This mural has made me money. This mural, if somebody has supported a local artist. No, he talked about the owner of the company and this vision that he has to be a big part of this community, and the reason why the mural and the vision and how much it is hard to be able to bring this guy's vision to life. And that post just a couple days later after the other one got over 52 reactions within the day. But the most important thing, he got a new job out of it. He got a mural out of it. And so it's just what's cool about this is like go out and do it. And the thing that people are most afraid of is like, is it going to work? I don't know if it's going to work, but you're going to come back. And when you fall on your face, we're going to dissect it and see what worked and what didn't work. And then you're going to go out and you're going to do it again because the action is what matters.
Yeah, and so that is a great story, and I love hearing that. So for yourself, when you're doing boot camp, is it like a 1 hour meeting? Is it 2 hours? How many people are in a boot camp? People are working on things together, and then, maybe somebody's the focus. Give the audience an idea of how that works.
Yeah, it's a 12-week program. It's 90 minutes. We have a morning right now. I have two groups going or two cohorts. I have a morning Monday group and an afternoon Monday group. And morning group has 9 people. We have 12 in the second group in the afternoon group. And so 12 is kind of the max. You have to have enough, you don't want to you want to be able to give everybody enough time to get through everything. So there's a coaching. I have a framework that has made me be a difference maker. I've had so many people say, man, if I could have like the reputation you have, if I could have people saying things about me like they're saying about you in rooms you're not in, that so what I've taken is my strategy and my process and made me a successful salesperson, a successful leader, and then a successful business owner. And I've put that in a framework that I can teach people. However, it's helping them shift their perspective, shift their mindset, dive deep into who they are, who their stories are, who they serve. Stories are data of a soul, and we do a lot of dissecting into those stories. We go really deep into those stories to really get clarity and confidence on when you know the difference that you're making and you know the alternative if you don't step in that life, it gives you a confidence that I'm not selling anymore, right? Uh, Here's a good example. Another story. We talked about this when you were on my podcast about Blake Smith, but I didn't use his name because he was very very nervous about sharing his story. And I shared this story about this young man. He started insurance sales, and I asked him, "Why do you do insurance?" Because I know most people get insurance just so they can make money, or they don't think about a passion or there's not a real reason why they do it, and they burn out or they don't really love it, right? And it's hard to get through those hard times when people are kicking you in the face. It's hard to make those cold calls if you don't really have a passion or a why behind it. And so I asked him, and I expected to hear something, BS. And he told me, I do this because so other people don't have to be like my family. He's like, my dad died when I was in high school and he didn't have life insurance. And so my mom had to go back to work and it severely impacted our household and our finances. And it was the way he told it was really emotional. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. When people ask you what you protect people from their financial uncertainties, from their financial mishaps they don't see coming. For example, this is what happened to me when I was in high school, and I do this so I can help other people to not have to go through what I had to go through. Boom, mic drop, right? I'm like, you should share that. He's like, I can't. Why? Because I don't want people to think my dad's stupid. So as crazy as this sounds, as you're going through boot camp, when I say that you have so much attachment to your story, I've had 245 episodes of the podcast, and almost every single one of those people don't see the same stories that I see that are the best stories. They think those are the vulnerable ones, the ones that nobody wants to hear. I'm like, that's the gold. That's the gold right there. And so once they tell that, it's it's night out. So, anyways, getting past that limiting belief. So fast forward, me and you are on the podcast. This ties into you, right? I'm sharing this story about this guy and like him not wanting to tell this story and why the importance of this story. Because if people are sitting there across from you and they don't have life insurance, I'm probably not going to tell the life insurance guy that I don't have life insurance because I don't want him to one sell me, and two, I don't want to look stupid.
Mm.
I don't want to tell the insurance guy that I'm irresponsible and I don't have a life insurance policy because he's going to try to sell me. He's going to shame me. However, if Blake shares that story, and now all of a sudden my wall's down, my vulnerability is down, I can share, you know what? I don't have life insurance. Maybe I should talk to you. And now I'm selling without selling. And so that's what boot camp is all about, is how do you dominate? How do you dominate from a sales and a marketing perspective without feeling salesy or feeling gimmicky or feeling icky or feeling like, oh my God, I don't want to post that because people think I'm an imposter. It's all that process hitting your space and making the impact that you should have made because hell is meeting the person that you could have been. What's
Yeah.
that gap? What's that gap? What's God's purpose for you? And what's holding you back?
Yeah. And normally it's,
So fast
yeah.
forward, this
Yeah.
is the really gold of the
Go ahead.
story, right? I talked about him, and this guy calls me after he listens to our podcast. And he calls me up and he's like, hey Jason, I was listening to the podcast where you talked about me, like kicking my stomach. Oh no, what's this guy gonna say, right? He's like, after I took my took it on the chin, he was like, I asked myself, why am I not sharing this story? He's like, so I went out and I shared this story 4 times this week, and I've sold 4 life insurance policies. I got to be in a room with this guy in a networking event where he was the last person out of 30 to do his like introduction, and the person before him had people crying.
Wow.
And literally right before he gave his speech, he was like, somebody else in the room was like, I'd hate to be the next that person to have to go last. I'd hate to have to go follow that. And then he did his compelling conversation framework. He did that. He said exactly what he does. He told his story. He left it with a call to action. It was under a minute, but he ended up getting 3 minutes of extra time because people kept asking him questions. And then something really beautiful, somebody from across the room was like, I've known Blake since he was in elementary school. And it's just amazed at the young man that he's become. I'm so proud of who he's become and how he's out helping people. Do you think he had influence in that group by the end of the meeting? That's
Yeah.
what boot camp does.
Yeah, and that's a great one too because for myself, yeah, I run 180 1-hour CirrusNet meetings every year. 180 of them. And so you multiply that times the number of member minutes that I get to hear as well too from people that offer all different types of things. The ones that are able to personalize, have a story and a reason why will always have a leg up on the people that all they do is describe features and benefits of the products that they have. People
Dude,
don't care
Michael
about that.
Marinick today.
Yeah,
Oh
yes.
my God. I had like tears flowing. I was like, dude, you fucking killed it. And he was like, this is my boot camp practice. This is my story framework that I built out of boot camp. I'm like, hell yeah, man. That's awesome. You had me going. That was great.
So your podcast, the Coffee and Grit podcast, I know that part of your boot camp, some of the students come in and you're able to help them kind of encapsulate their story, their journey within a podcast.
Yeah.
And then you encourage them to, share that, get that stuff out there so it can start working for them. So let's talk a little bit more about, the role that you play in that, and then who's the type of client that takes it up even another notch beyond that?
So this is a whole holistic process. And so I've always with my clients, it's not just teaching, it's going and putting them in situations of doing, whether it's opening my network and making connections to them to whether it's a client, somebody that they can learn from, somebody that they can go and practice, a group, bring them to CirrusNet so they can get in with a group where they can give their member minutes and that kind of thing. They can actually get out there and put it into action. And that's the same thing with the content. I have this studio now. I had the podcast. What I noticed from just content creation, that podcast, creating the video, telling the stories, is that it really puts you on a platform. I'll tell the story. We'll talk about the podcast and the content and kind of the stuff I have working on there, which is just mind blowing what's happened in the past 7 months. But that's a separate topic as we go through the boot camp and they really embrace and understand and get clarity of who they are, how their stories relate to the difference that they're making in the world. At the end of this, I bring them in the studio and they get a 30-minute session with me. So included in their price for the boot camp, they get the 12 sessions. We meet once a week. We do the 90 minutes. They get accountability every week. They get the coaching. And then at the end of it, they each get a 30-minute session where they come in the studio and we have a conversation, just like the podcast. I I ask them questions around teeing them up, like sharing the stuff that they've put together, like really sharing their difference and sharing their story and sharing their message. And then I give them 3 clips out of it that they can share on their social media. So that's all included with the boot camp. Because again, to be able to now go into put it into action and talk about it where it's not role playing, it's not, you're literally sharing it. And now we can turn it into content that you can put out there into the ether that other people can find and relate to and decide whether they know, like, or trust you without
Yeah.
you doing any other work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exciting. And so that's for the boot camp folks. But let's say you've got a person that, definitely wants to go a lot further and get everywhere and get a lot of exposure. I know that your studio right now is located inside of a business that you've helped tremendously
Yeah.
in consulting space and to reach a much larger audience. So maybe first thing is, share a tidbit about that. And then maybe, who's somebody that you might be able to highlight that's kind of taken this now to that next level and is really in stride.
Well, and this is the redundant theme. Take action. Just go do the things because you don't know all the answers. There's no amount of certainty that you can have that you're going to be successful or anything. But like when you go and you do the thing, I started podcasting because I needed to create a brand for myself. I needed to get myself out there. I knew content was going to be key in order to like tell my story and put myself on a platform because nobody knew who I was. I was going out and I was networking, I was doing the speaking. That's all part of the strategy. But how can I work when I'm not working? And that's where the podcast came in for me. Now, something magical happened, and you talked about at the beginning how I'm always focusing on other people's stories because, like, I'm going out to these coffee shops, I'm sitting down with people, and they're telling me these amazing stories of their perseverance and their grit and how they got back up and how they solved this problem or this tragedy that happened to them as a kid and why they're doing what they're doing now. It's like, oh my God, people need to hear that. let me go get a GoPro and I'm going to start filming these conversations and creating content. So that's the short of how that all happened. And now I'm doing this podcast, and all of a sudden I'm like, people are telling me this amazing stuff. There's amazing content in here, and they're not doing anything with it. And part of what sitting down with Kevin, he was like, why aren't they doing anything with it? And I'm like, because it's hard. They don't even see their own stories, and then they got to go and get learn the tech and how to edit, and then they got to post it. And I'd make videos for people and they wouldn't even post them. I'm like, I've already made the clip for you. Why didn't you post it? Because I don't know what to post with it. I've got to create a post to go along with that. And, so there's a whole dot of all these things you got to do. So I started out the podcast, I started monetizing, and I'd say, hey, you can take the content and you can do whatever you want with it. This is a free podcast. However, if you want help really getting the maximum investment out of your time, here's some content packages that I have that I can take these videos, I can turn them into content that you can put out there that'll make a big difference and help you gain that traction and really tell your story and share your difference on social media. And out of that, I had a gentleman named Kevin Brown. He owns Garrett Truck and Auto out in Farmington Hills, and then Motor City Truck Collision in Brighton. And he came to me because one of his friends was on my podcast, and he could tell that I let her be authentically her. She's a badass. I think the episode is called "Wake the Fuck Up" with Mary Vance. And so he's like, "Wow, I'm that guy. Like I swear, like I'm just raw." And he came to me and he's like, "I'm raw." He's like, "I started off as a mechanic. I was working there an hourly mechanic. I ended up working my way up to ownership, and now I own these businesses, and I've been really successful. But there's so many people that start a business because they're great mechanics and they're shitty business owners, and I just want to help them, blah 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 blah." And so we started doing this content. He was on my podcast 3 times. I was creating content for him, and the long story short of it is we started going viral. We hit a clip that hit 1 million people. And so he decided to do his own podcast. He's called it Repair Shop Reckoning. And I was continuing to do his social media. And we created a TikTok page, Instagram, Facebook for Repair Shop Reckoning at zero last December. Started them all scratch. We had no followers last December. And within that year, we are now at over 80,000 followers across platforms. We had 5 million views. But in the last 2 months, we've had 15 million views on the content.
And
So
just to interrupt real quickly, and he's doing this because he wants to be helpful to, others that own body shops, maybe haven't, hit their business goals and are not as successful as him. But so he has a consulting part of his business, right? Where he's
so he didn't until we met. And
okay,
then,
so go with that
yeah,
then. Yeah. Yeah, share that then. So you helped him create a consulting business then from what
yeah.
he, okay. You want to, if
Sorry,
you
I
want
was
to,
freezing up and then I'd go to talk and
I'm going to
uh
write
so
the,
he didn't have a consulting before we met, and he didn't
okay.
even know if he wanted to do consulting. But through this, he now has 7 clients. He's bringing in $14,000 a month in consulting revenue that he didn't have before because of the content that we got out. Every single person that finds us has found us from the content. And so back up before we even started doing the consulting thing in May, he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, we've got TikTok monetization. TikTok started paying us for content creation. Instagram pays us for content creation. We're almost there with YouTube. We make a pretty decent amount of money off of Facebook, especially. But that's the really cool thing too. My clients are now starting to get monetized on their pages, which is pretty awesome. It's cool when you can get a few of them making money. So, but he met me up. We had a conversation in May, and I met him out here at his truck collision place in Brighton. And he was like, "Hey, before we have a conversation, let me show you something. I had a tenant move out of this space. What would you think about if we made our own content studio?" And to back up, my 3-year goal when went through GBB with Kevin was to have a podcast here, my own content studio. And so I achieved that in 3 months of putting that down as my 3-year goal. So, think about how quickly that gets done. When you put something as a goal, all of a sudden now your opportunities and your resources come together. And so we had our studio up and running, all the equipment, everything all set up by June. And so since that time, it's been a lot of learning curve, a lot of working with clients, a lot of growing Repair Shop Reckoning and getting millions of views and getting new clients from that. and then helping my other clients. I was just showing today, I've been working with Diana Anderson from Second to Family Home Care. And, when she came to me, she was like, I need to get more clients. I need to get, my voice out there. I'm trying to make a difference in the world. Nobody knows who I am. It's so hard to find employees. And we just went to work creating content around her voice and who she is and being consistent with it and creating video to people where people can see it, sharing it in relevant groups. And I'm telling you what, it's super awesome to see it explode. This last 28 days, she's had 55,000 views on her content. She's had 4,800 engagements. So people liking, sharing, clicking, commenting, so that's almost, it was almost 10% of people that are viewing the content are engaging in it, which is amazing. Like that, a great performing page is at 6%. She's at 10%. The results of that are now, just last week, she got 4 new clients out of a post that we put out. And I know they're coming from Facebook because right after the post goes out, people are messaging her and asking her what her rates are. And she's landing them. She asked me on Saturday, she's like, "Oh my God, I got these 4 new clients. Now I need employees. I need caregivers. Can you put a post out?" So Saturday we put a post out. And when we started this, there'd be crickets. Now I put a post out and she got 25 people just like that. She was able to hire 3 people over the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Great success stories. Great success stories.
So it's like,
You
what is
know,
those views and what is that content? And what is that telling that story? That power? It's that right there. It moves mountains. It gets you what you want.
absolutely. So, if you're listening to this and you have not found your voice, you don't have your strategy, you're kind of struggling with that stuff. Jason really is the expert at doing this. He's passionate. He's helped businesses from all different types of businesses. So really, the business doesn't matter so much as the person. So, to kind of wrap this interview up, Jason, I'd like to know, what your plans are, where you would like to be, 3 years from now, approximately. For myself, for those that don't know my story, I used to own a mortgage company in the early 2000s, loved doing what I did for a living, learned about referrals and networking through BNI, started BNI chapters, and had the incredible experience in BNI of being like the happiest a person could ever be, and also the worst experience possible in BNI. Don't need to go into details with it, but what I will say is I got thrown out of a BNI group, and that's what compelled me to start something unlike BNI that could still achieve the same result just through a different means, right? So that's my passion behind Cirrus. And I created this because I was referral groupless and didn't want to go back into BNI, but I didn't want to create another BNI either. I wanted something that had more heart. And so that's what I'm
Yeah, yeah.
passionate about with CirrusNet is helping people have success in this space without the tread on their backs that sometimes people get by being in one of those groups. 3 years from now, I would love to see 100 CirrusNet facilitators in Michigan. I'd like to kind of be the dominating. I know we're number one in Livingston County, but lots of counties in Michigan, lots of areas to help. And my goal is to
Yep.
10x from here over the next 3 years. How about Jason Tracey and Roar Consulting? If you could wake up 3 years from now and be where you want to be, what would that look like?
So, it's really cool. It's funny. It's taken 8 years to really be here. I've been a solopreneur for this whole entire 8 years, and I really haven't had that vision of like, where would I plug in employees? When I was doing the consulting, the fractional sales consulting, I was like, I really need more people, and I contemplated bringing on some other fractional sales consultants, and I dipped into my network and kind of toyed around with that, and I was just like, I don't really want to do that. I didn't really have a passion for that piece, and the content and I'm at a point now where it's like all the things I need to get off my plate, and so I'm looking at bringing on somebody that can do some back end stuff. It's so looking at 3 years, it's having a team of people doing some of my back end stuff and doing some of the content filming creation, some of the things that just take some of my time so that I can then pull out and use what is making me different, my brain, my mindset, the way I see the stories to really be able to continue taking that next level. Boot camp, we've now done a pretty good job in Livingston County, and I want to keep these in person because I noticed that the in person is really big, but I want to do these and expand out. It's been a year and a half of consistently doing a boot camp group coaching, and it's now, like I said, finally taking off. In 3 years, I want these to be spread out, impacting way more people. And I can see doing them in multiple days, as opposed to just the one day that I have now. So I'm just really continuing to grow now what I have, but I can see opportunities to being able to plug in and train and develop people, which is what I love doing that when I was in my role before I started my business, being able to really impact people's lives. It's just and now being able to teach them something and make them a way of seeing the world. It's cool as I help my clients that are like, what can I give somebody? How can I be different? And as far as when I'm hiring people and building a culture, to think about that in the training and the development I can give somebody, that really excites me. For people, I know how I've impacted people's lives when I was working for somebody else and I was in a leadership role. It'd be really, really cool to have my own thing that I've now been doing for this time and really impact people, bring them in and helping change their lives as part of rural consulting.
Okay. And with that being said, if you've gotten value from this podcast, you don't know Jason Tracey, or if you do anyways, feel free to reach out to him. Let him know the impact he's had in your life. We don't always hear that enough. And sometimes when we thank somebody who's been extremely supportive in our life, like Jason's been for mine, those thank yous of appreciation go a long way. Because sometimes people that are in the help
It really
space,
does.
when you get that real authentic thank you, it's huge. And do you see yourself as you try to establish the boot camps maybe a little bit more across Michigan? Do you see, since you've worked with the Howell Chamber successfully helping people in their chamber, is introductions to folks that work at different chambers to learn about boot camp as an option for them? Is that something that would be helpful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have an engagement coming up in March with the Novi Chamber, for example, and they have their own economic development and something they're kind of doing with kind of like the hub out of Livingston County. And so I'm doing a day thing there, and again, kind of getting my foot in the door because those are the organizations that are taking care of the people that I love working with, that you love working with, the small business owners, and so those places that are good connections would be people that are working with that same crowd of people, those small business owners. And I do want to make a clarification because it's not just working with anybody. They do have to be purpose driven. They do have to have, and they could be searching for their purpose and their passion in their work. But if you are just doing something to make money, and you're just going through the motions, you're not my person.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great podcast, Jason. Thank you so much for carving out some time to spend with me. And so we could spend this time with you being outward facing and sharing what's important to you and your business and your takeaways. You're like anybody else, you're a human being. You're doing your best out there to help other folks. And you are one of those people that when people are talking about you and you're not around, you got nothing to worry about. It's all good stuff.
Ah, that's awesome. I
All right.
appreciate it. That's
Thank
super
you, my
cool.
friend.
Love it when a plan comes together.